All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to put two of the biggest names in advertising, Google and Meta, right under the microscope. Now, on the surface, sure, they're both absolute giants, but underneath it all, they are playing two completely different games. You've got one building this impenetrable fortress, and the other, well, it's riding a rocket ship, but that rocket might be running on some seriously risky fuel.
So, this is the big question we're tackling today, right? In this crazy, high stakes ad war, who's really winning? Is it the slow, steady, unshakable giant? Or is it the explosive, fast moving competitor? Let me tell you, the answer is way more interesting than you might think.
And really, it all boils down to these two ideas. On one hand, you've got Google. Think of it like a fortress, just solid, resilient, built to withstand anything. And then you've got Meta. That's our fragile rocket. We're talking insane, explosive growth, but there's a catch, a big one, and it's a vulnerability that could change everything. So let's start by looking inside that fortress. Okay, first up, Google's fortress. So what makes it so unshakable? To get it, we really need to dig into the very bedrock of their business. See, it's not just about being massive. It's about how they're massive and how they built those walls so incredibly high. And here's the thing that might actually blow your mind. It's accelerating. We all kind of think of Google search as this thing that's just always been there, right? Mature, constant. But get this, the data shows its growth is actually speeding up. In a market as volatile as today's, having a core business that's not just reliable but accelerating, wow, that is just unbelievably powerful. So this fortress has like three main pillars holding it all up. First, their search. It captures people at the exact moment they decide they want to buy something. That is pure gold. Then you've got YouTube, which just completely dominates online video. Who else is even close? And the third piece, and this is absolutely crucial, is their base of advertisers. It's huge, and it's incredibly diverse. They don't depend on just one industry. So if, say, the auto industry has a bad year, Google's fine. Now that's a fortress.
Okay, so let's switch gears. Time to talk about Meta and their story. Well, it's a world away from Google's stability. This is all about speed, all about explosive growth. And lately, that growth has been powered by one very specific and very, very powerful engine. 20%. Just let that number sink in. That is the kind of massive growth Meta has been posting. It's an incredible number, the kind of thing that gets Wall Street buzzing, and it shows just how powerful their advertising platform really is. But you knew there was a but coming. We have to ask, where is all that growth really coming from?
And wow, this is where the story gets really fascinating. Take a look at this. A staggering 60% of their recent ad growth isn't from a broad mix of advertisers. Nope. It's coming from a very small, very concentrated group. Those Chinese e-commerce giants like Temu and Shan. They're just pouring money into Meta's ads, and that is what's fueling that incredible 20% growth. And right there, that's the first crack in the rocket's hole. So you might be wondering, how can these companies afford to spend so much money? Well, they're taking advantage of a little-known but incredibly powerful U.S. trade rule. This is the unseen threat. This is the thing that could bring that high-flying rocket ship right back down to Earth. It's called the Deminimus rule. Now, that sounds complicated, but it's really not. In simple terms, it's a tax loophole. It lets companies ship packages directly to you, a U.S. consumer, from overseas and pay zero, absolutely zero import taxes or tariffs, as long as the package's value is below a certain number. And what's that magic number? $800. Any single package that's valued under $800 can enter the United States from another country like China completely tax-free. Now, if you're a retailer selling tons of low-cost items, well, you can imagine, this is a massive, massive financial advantage.
Let's just walk through how this works so it really clicks. Okay, you're scrolling on Instagram, you see an ad for some cool gadget on Temu. You click, you buy it. Now, that package isn't coming from a warehouse in Ohio. It's shipped directly from China straight to your doorstep. And because it's worth less than $800, Temu pays zero U.S. import tax. So all that money they save, where do you think it goes? Right back into buying more ads on platforms like, you guessed it, Meta.
So now we bring it all together for the big showdown. In one corner, you've got Google's fortress, built on the broad, stable demand of millions of different advertisers. And in the other corner, you have Meta's rocket, fueled by a concentrated group of advertisers who depend on one single and potentially very fragile tax loophole. And this right here, this is the central vulnerability. That de minimis rule is facing intense political scrutiny in Washington. So the question is, can Meta keep up its impressive growth if its biggest clients lose their biggest advantage? If that loophole gets closed, or even just narrowed, the entire business model for these companies is threatened. And that, of course, becomes a direct threat to Meta's growth.
This chart illustrates the risk perfectly. If that fire hose of ad money coming from Chinese retailers slows down because their tax advantage disappears, well, Meta's impressive 20% growth could potentially be cut in half, or maybe even more. The whole trajectory of that rocket ship would change dramatically. So here's the contrast in a nutshell. Google's fortress is built on this really resilient foundation of millions of diverse advertisers with real intent-driven demand. Meta's rocket, while it's flying high right now, is being propelled by a very concentrated and, frankly, very fragile fuel source, a tax break that could just vanish. And that leaves us with this final question to chew on. In the wild world of tech, what's more valuable? The unshakable stability and steady dominance of a fortress like Google, or the thrilling but potentially perilous trajectory of a rocket ship like Meta? The answer to that question is going to define the future for both of these titans.